capitalist class.
At times in this video, you will see people sweating profusely. This is a working class production, and we had to produce in less favorable conditions where you didn't have air conditions.
The capitalist class needs another generation of workers. They constantly need the working class to reproduce itself because this is where their profit comes from. This is where they extract their surplus value from workers at the point of production. And who does this work of getting the workers from age 0 to age 18 or age 16 or 14 or 12 or 10 or 8, depending on where the capitalists decide to begin to exploiting the working class, because we know that child labor is still a problem in many parts of the world today. It's the women. You know, in general around the world, it's the women who do that kind of unpaid labor to provide the capitalists with the next generation of workers. And as long as men and women among the working class are separated, as long as men are willing to see women take that extra bit of exploitation, willing to see the women do all the work to produce the next generation of workers, and that's just going to be another stumbling block in terms of building the unity between men and women that's needed. A father should want to get to know his children. And any person, if they learn how to cook one or two things well, would really enjoy spending some time in front of the oven or stove, I think, and putting together a nice meal. I mean, these are things that are just basically enjoyable, regardless of politics. But even inside our organization, inside the left, you know, there are perhaps men who think that, well, if I just treat my wife decently, if I just treat my significant other decently, then it's okay if they do all the cooking and cleaning and whatever. And that's just the backdoor entrance for sexism. And that is a division. It's maintaining the division that serves the bosses. In addition, it has to be put forward bluntly that if you can't be loyal, you know, loyalty is a huge issue. And if you can't be loyal to the people in your family and to your husband or wife, you know, if you can't be loyal there, then how loyal can you be expected to be under more serious conditions of duress, situations of arrest, situations of interrogation, even of torture? You know, these are things that the capitalist class has inflicted on the workers in the past, and it takes a high degree of loyalty, you know, to build our movement and to withstand the attacks that the bosses have and to keep our priorities straight. So loyalty is a huge question inside a household. And needless to say, questions of physical abuse, you know, emotional abuse, these are things that we have a very firm position that we don't want them in the future. And the party is our seat of the future. And so we don't want them in our party today. The other thing is, although we have these many deeply held and deeply seated beliefs, we are not Puritans and we are not perfect. And it's through the process of criticism and self-criticism and submitting yourself to the will of a collective and to the judgment of a larger group of people that we all become more educated and gain the strength to withstand what really is a daily onslaught of bad ideas from the capitalist class through their movies, through their television, through their radio, through their schools, and through their churches that continue to reinforce and perpetuate sexist ideology. It's only the power of our collective that helps us to resist that, and we're winning that fight.
I think it kind of to me, it means, in other words, the battle against sexism is not just a woman's battle, that it's a man's battle too. And I'm going to come at this kind of backdoorish, but one of the things that makes our party strong is that we have many people who can assume leadership. And so when there's an attack on the party, we don't just all fall apart. We can have other people step up and take leadership. The reason I'm bringing that up is because within the household too, if the gender roles are so divided, then if something happens in the household, it becomes difficult for the household to continue functioning. And I'm coming now to the point, which is, for example, with my household, there was a time when my wife was in a real bad car accident, and because I was used to doing things around the house, cooking, cleaning, stuff like that, the whole place didn't just fall apart when she had to be in the hospital for a long period of time. And so my son didn't just have to see, you know, daddy, well, just going to McDonald's and buying food, and that's the way we survive while mommy's in the hospital. He saw that we could continue functioning more or less the same way, regardless of if one of us is sick or well or whatever. So, you know, the battle has to be on both fronts and not just a woman's battle.
You know, I was wondering if this should be expanded to not just say men must reject sexism, but men must fight against sexism. I mean, maybe that's coming up in another part of this video, but I just wonder, I mean, I know that sometimes, like, I'll have occasion to be around people, and maybe I'm in a situation where there's no black people around, and someone will say something kind of racist, and so I always make it a point to, try to say something about it and try to struggle about that. And I know that men are often in situations where there's a bunch of other guys, and I'm sure there's a lot of sexism that comes up in those kinds of situations, and I just wonder how you handle that, because it must be kind of tricky. You don't want to come off like you're some kind of, like really out there, holier than thou or something like that, but still, it needs to be addressed. So I don't know if any of the men in the group want to respond to that, or maybe women have some ideas about how men should struggle against sexism in that kind of situation.
I have a story about, it's sort of a funny story. It happened many years ago, and we were driving back from a conference in New York City. There were I think six men in the car, and one of them was a bus driver. And we were looking across. I was noticing somebody in another car, and he says, "Man, I'd like to have her in my lap." So I felt it was my responsibility to say something. Well, as the discussion emerged, it turned out that the bus driver who made the comment really was the least sexist probably of any of us in the car. He was just trying to, play a role of sounding macho or sounding like he was a real sexy guy. But then it turned out that some of the other guys really did tend to look at women in that, in an exclusively sexual way, in a way that was harmful.
I think the more that men step up in those kinds of situations and address an issue that might be a sexist joke or a sexist comment, to be honest, people respect you for that kind of stuff. It's not like people are going to just think that you're holier than thou. Some people might, but a lot of people really don't feel those feelings in their heart. They really feel the way that we're trying to put forward right now. And if we step out there and say something and address a sexist joke, people actually respect it more.
Yes. Which brings to mind a story. I was a railroad worker once. I was a clerk, and I worked in the piggyback ramp where truck drivers brought in their loads to put on the train, and it was a real sexist environment. I was, a handful of a few women that worked there, and this truck driver came in and made this real sexist kind of comment. "Oh, what is she doing working here? I'm sure she can't, toe the line like you all are towing, and she's probably getting paid as much as you're paid." And so this clerk, who wasn't in the party, he was a white worker, and he looked at this guy and he said, "Look, we all take care of one another, we work with one another, and we help one another. So I don't think you have a right to say anything like that, because she helps me and I help her." And I just had so much respect for him when he did that, and it was a white worker.